a friend and a former neighbor who used to live on Gresham, Lou Berman, was also opposing a light at one point in time. And he happened to mention back in those days there was a map that seemed to have disappeared in the county that showed Selby Lane as a particularly wide street, as though it was a continuation of traffic from Fifth Avenue. I'm not sure who is really generating the interest in a traffic light. I'm under the impression that it's the county that somehow has that interest. Safety is a legitimate concern, but I really question whether a stoplight's really in the overall best interest for the residents of Atherton, or in particular those that live in the Selby area. I question if there is a CEQA analysis that was proposed at all for this project. That's from the California Environmental Quality Act that would talk about an analysis of the environmental impacts that include noise and pollution of trucks that start and stop if there's a stoplight. Are there current traffic counts in all directions, the level of service analysis and LOS analysis that shows that, as well as projections of how that would change from one street to another, Selby, El Camino. Is there a projected traffic intrusion into Selby Lane? Will it increase because of a traffic light? What's the projected delay in El Camino Real as well for through traffic if they're going to be having an extra light to stop at? Is there a projected delay for cars turning right onto Selby Lane from El Camino because of a stoplight? Consider the potential increase traffic on the school children walking. There's current backup on Austin Avenue at the stop sign and an El Camino at Selby already. Does more traffic make Selby Lane a better street for those that live there and for the noise of those that live there? If you multiply 31,000 a day of traffic, that comes out to about 113,150,000 cars over the 10 years. And yes, there were 50 accidents there, but that's about maybe 2,263,000 cars that traverse. I wonder, traffic accidents do happen, often by negligence of the drivers, not by the structure of the intersection itself. The intersection was designed in the 1930s and 40s. I'm wondering what it would really cost to actually upgrade that intersection to where it could handle a light. $800,000 was what was quoted now. A year ago in the agenda for the traffic commission, it was posted as between $400,000 and $500,000. In 1 year, that's about a 60% increase alone. I wonder what the cost will be by the time they get around to it in 2018. I would stop it. I'm not in favor of a stoplight. I like the rural aspect of the intersection there. In addition, there's also drainage that needs to be addressed, and is that included in the cost as well?
Thank you, Zach. You're welcome. Please step up.
Hi, my name is Barbara Kostick, and I live on Selby Lane also. And I just want to thank the last couple of speakers because they brought out a lot of issues that I was going to talk about, and now I'll ignore since you already talked about them. I worked in a hospital for 35 years, and when we have an event at a hospital, we call it a sentinel event, we do a root cause analysis to find out what exactly caused that sentinel event. Was it a procedure, or was it a problem with one of the staff, and how to fix it. I don't see that happening in this case. I see that we've had 50 auto accidents in the last 10 years. I see no analysis on what it is. I hear from someone that is, quote, intuitively it's being broadsided, but I'd like someone to at least research the data and tell me that, to tell me if accidents are increasing with the number of cars or are they staying stable over the years. So we don't have enough information to make this decision right now. I personally do not think that a stoplight is 1/10 of a mile from Selby Lane to Fifth Avenue and 1/10 of a mile from Selby Lane to Oakwood. Another stoplight is really going to solve the problem. I think we have to look at what the problem is that caused the accidents and see how we can avoid that problem. Thank you.
Since I too had to campaign last year because of your decisions, but the college students at Menlo College told me, based on my working with them, that Alhambra was where they go over at night to get across the street to go to get to the store. I don't know what the name is, a 7-Eleven type store.
Yeah.
But in their, if you're gonna, you need to look at Alhambra with more than just the people that live there. I think it's the college students who use that as the closest place to get across the street without going up to the light, which would be the logical answer, but I at least want to get their influence expressed on the record.
Thank you. Please step up.
Hi, my name is Ken Wyburn, and I live on Selby Lane. And I want to reiterate what a couple of people have said, that sometimes it takes me 5 minutes to get out of my driveway, and that's turning right. God help me if I wanted to turn left. And 30 years ago, or roughly 30 years ago, we voted for a bond issue. It had a lot of things on it. The only reason we voted for it was because it had something on it that was supposed to deal with the traffic flow on Woodside Road. So far as I can tell, all of that money has been spent on the projects we didn't care about at all, and not a penny has been spent on making Woodside Road work better. And the result has been enormous traffic on Selby Lane. Now, part of that is due to the school, which we got no opportunity to put any comments in when they doubled the size and made it a magnet school, which meant that many more people came by car than had done so beforehand when it was simply a regular school. But that's water under the bridge, and I have some sympathy for the people who are driving their kids to school, because given the traffic on Selby Lane, walking is dangerous. But I'm strongly opposed to a traffic light there because I think it will increase traffic on Selby Lane. I think the safety issue, I don't think pedestrians is much of an issue. In fact, the studies that were done the last time this traffic light was proposed showed that most of the kids who crossed El Camino to get to the Selby Lane school either crossed at Oakwood or crossed at Fifth Avenue. They didn't cross at Selby Lane. We have stop monitors there. They're mostly sitting on the seat. They're rarely out there stopping traffic on El Camino. Crosswalk signals, fine, but a traffic light that would just encourage people to turn left and make it easier onto and off of Selby Lane. I think most Selby Lane residents don't try to turn left off of Selby Lane. If they want to go off in that direction on El Camino, they go up to one of the other intersections where there already is a light. If they want to turn right, they can turn right. And similarly, they don't turn left onto Selby Lane, they turn left somewhere else where there are better gaps in the traffic. And so certainly as a resident, I would be happy to see left turns onto and off of El Camino stopped. And that would, if our issue with broadsiding, that would fix it. And anything which would increase traffic, especially traffic that's diverted from Woodside Road, to me, is something that we simply shouldn't be doing.
Thank you, Ken. Any other comment? Please, Larry.
My name's Larry Sweeney. I'm on Irving Avenue, and I am on the Transportation Committee, and many of the concerns that you've raised about we don't really know enough about this was brought up with the Transportation Committee, and Caltrans and staff has promised to get back to us with more data, more information, so we can understand what is the problem that we're trying to solve. But I really think the initiative for the stoplight has come from Caltrans, that did their analyses of accidents, and that was one of the intersections that popped up as an unsafe intersection on a Caltrans facility, which is El Camino. But I'd also like to say to the public, traffic is going up everywhere. Selby Lane is no exception, but it is horrible. It's horrible on Middlefield, it's horrible on all of the streets, Stockbridge, Atherton Avenue, all of those are seeing increased traffic, increased speeding, and people
there are actually people who live, you know, in North Fair Oaks on Marsh Road. And you talk about not being able to get out of your driveway in the morning. Those people have a horrible problem. Part of the problem is our neighbors, Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Redwood City, are again initiating runaway development, doing nothing about the traffic that it produces, but approving every new condo development, every new apartment development, all these new office buildings. And you're gonna see it get a lot worse. And we somehow, as a town, have to figure out how to put pressure on our neighbors to solve their own traffic problems without expecting us in Atherton to improve our streets to handle their traffic.
Can I just say that if you improve the flow on El Camino and Woodside Road, it would do wonders. And putting another traffic light in it is just gonna make people more frustrated on El Camino, and they're gonna move off.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Larry. Any more public comments? We'll go ahead and close public comments. Council? Any comments from council?
I like the no turn lane suggestion for El Camino. I don't know what it would take to do that, but that to me would be a quick and easy alternative that if in fact it didn't have the desired results, we could always come back and do a more drastic, take a more drastic approach. And at least then the residents that live there would understand that we've heard what they had to say, and we did our best to try and look at that, and they could see if it does make a difference. So I think that that's an easy stopgap to try and install, and one that may actually pay dividends.
I'm sorry, that may involve a process, and Mike or Katie might be able to talk to that process. But I think the speaker talked about during commute hours, 7 to 10 or whatever that is, preventing that left turn to and from. And there's a school on Selby Lane, and their load in and load out times are during commute hours. So that would probably move that traffic.
Well, but the school does have two entrances. There's because there's a gate that you can go through. So, we work with the school, but I think that one of the issues is as was pointed out, was the children that are actually protecting the environment and walking to school can't walk to school safely, which is should be a big concern as well. So, but that's
a safe bike path, a safe pedestrian path along that road.
right. When we looked at that, that's on our list. But I do think that if we could find a way, working with Caltrans, to try out this no left turn, that would delay moving forward in maybe the recommended way that you're suggesting, but it would actually provide you some more data to see if the issue's done.
Councilman Whitmer, can I get your thoughts on hybrid beacon at Isabella? I just want to hear your thoughts on the hybrid beacon on Isabella.
Is that on the agenda?
Yes.
Part of the item.
Okay.
Actually, the no left turn lane is not.
Well, I understand.
Yeah, so
Just
we can't take a motion.
Okay, I do think that a hybrid beacon at Alejandra is well in line with what we need to do, and actually is one of the intersections that we talked about.
Isabella.
Isabella.
Yep.
Well,
You said Alejandro.
You said Alejandro.
Sorry, Isabella. It's one of the areas that we talked about on the bike path lane, and is also an area where we have had some accidents in the past, and so the hybrid beacon is a less obtrusive solution.
So I'll go to the vice mayor next, and then Councilman Dodd.
So, when I first looked at this, I called a few people on Selby Lane and in the area to get their opinions. I'm really glad that somebody showed up tonight. It shows the level of concern with traffic, which is obviously a problem, and I don't know the solution. The first place I went was let's get rid of the left turn lane going into Selby Lane. But when you look at that, you can if you're gonna get rid of the left turn lane going into Selby Lane, you have to get rid of the left turn lane going into each of the other parallel streets between Atherton Avenue and Selby Lane. Because you can't just push traffic onto Stockbridge or onto Almondrall. So you have to get rid of it for all of those, and before you could do that, you've got to find out how the residents would respond to that. Maybe it's a solution. It doesn't look to me like a street light at Selby is the solution. Clearly, we need to find a way to reduce traffic on Selby, which really is going to be to discourage pass-through traffic. And I mean, you can manage the speed limit by handing out a lot of tickets, but maybe the roundabout idea is an interesting idea, but I fear that if we put roundabout 1 or 2 on Selby Lane, you're just going to push traffic onto Stockbridge, so you'd have to do the same thing there. It's a complex problem, and the answer is not to avoid the problem, but we really have to address it from many sides because it's really a complex problem.
Can you address the hybrid beacon?
I strongly support the idea of a hybrid beacon at Isabella, and I support asking Caltrans to reduce the lane width and take that third lane in each direction and use it for bike paths and possibly pedestrian.
Perfect, thank you very much. Councilman Dobby, please.
Well, there certainly doesn't seem to be any support from the residents for a traffic light. That's something that we've made clear tonight from all the residents here. And like the other speakers, unfortunately, a no left turn lane on Selby would probably mean that traffic would move to other places where they could make a left turn. So unless you did, as the Vice Mayor said, put no left turn lanes at all of these streets, then you're gonna have problems moving traffic elsewise. As far as a hybrid beacon goes, you know, I just don't know if I would feel safe crossing, even with a hybrid beacon, if I would feel safe crossing Isabella. You know,
Isabella or Selby?
well, I don't know, wherever you put it. I think that, you know, hybrid beacons in a street like El Camino, I don't know, you know, we've had accidents there already. There are crosswalks there already. I would never suggest to anybody that they use them. And I think it would scare the living daylights out of me, even with a hybrid beacon, to walk across El Camino.
Thank you, McConnell. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Lewis.
So I'm interested in Larry Sweeney's comments from the Transportation Committee, because I know that Caltrans did make a presentation to them just earlier this month. And so you've asked staff and Caltrans for some additional information for this, is that correct?
Yes.
When is that going to be given to you? Yes?
If you're referring to the accident data, I do have it today. I have that information.
Mhm.
And that has been provided to staff?
It has?
Yes.
No, well, I don't remember what I provided to you. I might have a more updated version.
Okay, what we received was basically the 10-year accident information from 2000 to 2011.
Right. I do have the breakdown for the type of accidents out of those 50
Mhm.
and the cause, the primary collision factor. If you want me to go over
So-
that.
Again, I don't think we've received all of that information here. I feel that, yes, Larry?
So the next Transportation Committee meeting is scheduled for January 14th,
January 14th. So will you discuss it at that point?
hopefully.
Madam Mayor, the idea was, the council heard this in November of last year and directed staff to move ahead with it and talk to Caltrans.
Right.
We brought it to the Transportation Committee, but then there was a renewed sense of urgency from some of the council members to hear what was going on and what was happening.
Oh, I see.
That's why it's here
Why
this
it's here,
evening.
yeah.
I kind of circumvented the next meeting of the Transportation Committee at my direction
Yeah.
Right.
to provide the information to council to at least provide some feedback.
Right. I mean, to me, there's a couple of issues here, okay? One is the increased amount of traffic coming down Selby Lane with or without a traffic signal. I mean, and that is everywhere in Atherton. It is gridlocked along Middlefield Avenue. I live at the corner of Emily and Alejandra, and when Sacred Heart and Menlo School is in session, I cannot get out of my driveway in the morning or at 3:30 in the afternoon because there is a steady stream of cars that come around Alejandra and down Emily going to Sacred Heart and St. Joseph's and Menlo School. And that's just it. And then after those commute times are gone, it's a little better, but it's still a steady stream of cars. And that's increased in the 20 years that I've been living there. So, I mean, that's just the fact of life. But the other thing is, so how do we mitigate that? Hopefully, if we could have more children feel safer to ride their bike or to walk down Selby or down Austin or other streets in Atherton that this bike ped master plan process is looking at, then maybe some of those cars will come off of the streets. But I don't have a huge amount of hope because we are a pass-through residential community. Because people pass through our lanes and avenues and streets, going from 101 to 280, going from Middlefield to Alameda, and it's just the immense amount of more people. The second issue I think that we're looking at is just the safety of that intersection. And it is, for whatever reason, that intersection is exceptionally wide. Just like the intersection of Fair Oaks into Atherton Avenue across El Camino is exceptionally wide. Now that has a signal, but again, it's very wide. And so it's a little, Selby is even, it's not like Stockbridge or Isabella necessarily. It's worse because of the width and the amount of traffic that wants to turn left. So I think we need more information from the transportation before taking any action tonight, and have it brought back to council. I know Caltrans has been wanting to put a signal there because they're interested in safety. They're not interested in reducing traffic.
So can I get your comments on a hybrid beacon at either Selby and or Isabella?
I don't think a hybrid beacon at Selby Lane is the answer. I just don't think that it's the pedestrian solution. I think it's a car accident solution. I think Isabella, there should be a hybrid beacon would be effective, and I do want to continue the investigation of reducing the lanes, because Caltrans indicated that they are very interested in putting bike and pedestrian paths along El Camino to make them safe routes. They have told me that, I believe them, and I know for a fact from Menlo Park that when they put the center row of London Plain trees in their El Camino corridor, their downtown, and reduced the lane widths for those two lanes going north and south, and then the parking on the side. Their council members have said they have been studying that, and it has reduced the amount of accidents because people slow down. They just, when they get into that area, they automatically kind of slow down because of the trees, of the environment, the smaller lane widths, and that's a fact. People do drive more slowly. Does it backup congestion all the way back up into Redwood City and San Carlos? Probably, but have you tried going from Atherton up to San Carlos for a meeting at 7 o'clock in the evening? It's gridlock, you know, it's just gridlock anyway, so, I'd like to have
So-
more information.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to echo the concerns related to, we need further study related to Selby Lane and a traffic signal. I think at this point, we're just unprepared to commit to go forward related to that. I am not in favor of the hybrid beacon at Selby Lane for the obvious purpose that everybody's already indicated. I am in favor of the hybrid beacon at Isabella. So, in summary, we have 4 people in favor of a hybrid beacon at Isabella, 1 opposed on any location on Isabella. And again, further study related to the agenda topic, related to the intersection and the other issues we can address in the transportation committee. So we will not take any action other than saying we will support a hybrid beacon at Isabella.
Can you just say
In,
it is?
It is.
oh, well, and address, I apologize, the reduction of lanes by staff,
So perhaps could I
please.
ask for some further clarification and help the Transportation Committee in terms of what their next steps are to focus them on Selby Lane and to work with Caltrans and staff to come up with a solution for the vehicular issues. Everything from a no left turn during certain hours, to eliminating the lane, to going all the way up to a signal, and coming back with some sort of recommendation to the city council. That's what you want the Transportation Committee to do?
And
That sounds reasonable.
in the area, I mean, can there be more police, you know,
Staff at the same time was
presence there?
I agree with that.
Work with
So
them.
I have a point of order.
Please.
I would like to make a motion, but I don't know if it's appropriate, so please let me know. But rather, I think having the Transportation Committee do further investigation based on the information that they've requested is the right thing. I don't have any problem with that, so I'm not contradicting that. But I'm interested in this council directing staff to recommend and analyze different alternatives to reduce traffic on Selby Lane. Not necessarily focused on El Camino, but on, and that may include roundabouts, it may include speed bumps, it may include other
More police protection?
types of activities that would reduce traffic on El Camino. I would like staff to analyze those and come back to us with some analysis of, you know, the impacts, which
That's
may.
certainly something actually for the Transportation
Right.
Committee's agenda. Now, how you want that to matriculate up, that does cost money to have
Some
those
of
kinds
that's
of studies.
traffic engineering. It's
Right.
not something staff does, it's something traffic engineers do.
Well, that staff would.
Come back with a
retain
recommendation
traffic
for-
engineers to
Yeah,
do
for
this.
us to have a rule on.
Correct.
So transportation would get it recommendations up to council.
Yeah, I'm not particularly interested in a delay that might be associated with having the Transportation Committee make exactly the same request that, you know, I think we're capable of making after this long discussion and clearly hearing from the residents that they need.
Well, we can bring that back to the council. I mean, staff can work up a scope of work to deal with the issue and come up with a dollar, how much that would cost, and involve the Transportation Committee in that process, once it's approved by the city council to go forward.
Because you asked us what our opinion were.
Right,
And,
exactly.
you know, and I, with all due respect to the Transportation Committee, obviously Caltrans needs to come back to them and answer the questions, and then they need to discuss it. And they can make a recommendation to us at any time. But we've already heard the discussion, we've heard from a good number of the residents, so I don't see why we would delay it.
Well, it's not a delay, I'm suggesting, we need financial approval.
Well, I understand, so
from the
bring it, you know, my recommendation, along with the vice mayor, would be to bring it to the next, put it an agenda item on the next meeting. And if we have a report, you know, from Chairman Sweeney, he could come in at the same time and augment the.
I think we're talking the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring it to the council to get their approval to go do the studies, but once those studies are financed
That's correct.
by the
Yeah,
council.
yeah,
We'll involve the transportation committee in that.
Okay.
Then that seems like a reasonable direction, and I don't think we need a motion for that.
Right.
That's a non-actionable item.
Perfect,
All right.
Great.
thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody on item number 18 that came here in attendance. So let's move on to item number 19, food management, chief ed plan.
Big-
I'll speak. The mayor and members of the council, you have before you tonight a staff report requesting authorization to take a number of important fleet and routine fleet management actions within the police department. These actions are necessary and in some cases planned to maintain our current fleet in good working order, to ensure operational readiness, improve our capabilities, and dispose of unneeded surplus vehicles. The three actions that we're proposing are the purchase of 2 new Ford sedan Interceptors, one marked and one unmarked, both emergency vehicles and pursuit rated, to replace current high mileage vehicles, one of which was recently damaged in a traffic collision. Item number 2, or action number 2, is to convert one of our existing older Crown Vic patrol cars into a K9 unit. And third, dispose of 4 surplus police vehicles through a vehicle auction company. Total cost of all of these fleet actions in your report is approximately $80,629,000. That's not including any return we might get on the sale of the surplus vehicles, by the way. I have discussed the funding impacts of this request with our finance director and determined that such actions can be supported by the town's vehicle replacement fund. A few comments I want to highlight in the staff report, which I'm sure that you have read, is a couple of things that I think should pop out at you, but I'd like to reiterate them. The loss of the ABAC bag funding has increased the price of our patrol cars. The grant has expired. And also the changes in the patrol car industry. The Crown Victorian was deleted last year, so now we have to go with the Ford Interceptor police model, which is a different size and different design, and some of the equipment does not cannot be transferred to that newer vehicle. And that was also the case on the last new Interceptors we purchased. One of the patrol vehicles was forecasted for replacement during this budget. The unmarked detective car was not slated to be replaced, but it's a very high mileage car, and it was sustained moderate damage in a traffic collision recently. And the repairs of that damage, are justified given the age of that car and what it's worth. Then finally, on the brighter side, Town Ford will allow us to purchase 2 2014 Interceptors at the 2013 price, which we thought was quite generous. Giving us the additional K9 vehicle gives us a lot more flexibility in the deployment and use of the K9 dogs during training. And the argument that, well, if you've got those 2 cars, they can't be used by other patrol officers. Yes, they can. The problem we have is if we do have an arrest, we've got to make other arrangements for transportation, which we do that all the time with motorcycle officers. They make arrests, we get somebody to transport the prisoner, they ride their bike to the jail and take care of the booking issues. Additionally, we think we're estimating we'll get about $8,500 to $14,500 in return on the auction or sale of those vehicles, less some of the money that would have to be paid to the agent. Also, and then finally, none of this with the reduction of the truck in the fleet leads to a greater number of cars for the police department. Pretty much be staying at the same number of vehicles. So with that, I'm prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any members of council, any questions? Jim? Thank you.
Well, I've had some long discussions with the chief on this, and I really wondered why we needed 2 police dogs. But the chief is very convincing, and last night he brought some pictures of the previous days where I guess we had a lot more police dogs. I think we had 1.4 and definitely 3, and I also talked to several of the police officers last night, and they can sort of semi-convince me that police dogs were a good thing to have, so I've, to some extent, changed my position on that. The other question I have, and this has come up many times before, is why we're using First Capital Auction of Vallejo to surplus our police vehicles. And this has come up many times, and I don't really know. The answers before was this happened to be the most convenient way to do it, and they took care of everything, and they, you know, all we needed to do was to tell them we wanted to do it, and they came and picked them up. I'm still not convinced there isn't a way that we can get more money for our police vehicles. So these are my comments.
We have looked into that in the past. I know Steve Tyler did extensive research on what companies would be willing to take those vehicles. And remember, the black and white police vehicles, there's not a lot of demand for them. Obviously, we could try to, there are options. I guess we could try to sell them ourselves. And if that doesn't work, then we could look to the option that we already have a contract with the auctioneer. And if they can't sell them, then we're just gonna sell them for salvage.
So, are you done?
I'm finished.
So, you know, I spoke with the city manager yesterday, and he put out a note on this today, and I guess 2 items came up specifically with this. One was perhaps keep one of the cars that is kind of in running shape, but it's got high mileage, and we can use that as a to help with perhaps maybe slowing down some traffic on some of the sites in the manner in which the city manager specified in his email of this morning. I'd be very much in favor of using it, one of the cars for that, the one that actually would be safe to drive. And on